Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Five-1 Speedway Show. This is episode 2. Hopefully, you've all watched the first episode and you enjoyed the interview with James Shanes. This one is kind of a special one for all the American fans. This guy is a two-time US national champion, along with Californian state champion, and also Northern Californian champion. He has also ridden in the British League in 1984 for two clubs. And he also competed in the same year in the European Under-21 final at Kings Lynn. It is the one and only Steve Lucero.
How's it going, guys?
Well, it's pretty good here, apart from it being cold and wet and typical English weather, you know.
We're still in shorts and flip flops.
Well, lucky for you then. But first of all, how's this crazy year of 2020 been with all COVID been over in California this year?
Oh, actually, it started before COVID. In January, I've been working for a company for 27 years, and I got laid off at the beginning of January. And it's kind of a shock for me for being there for 27 years. And so it kind of was very depressing. And then all of a sudden, here comes this COVID, man, and it just made 2020 just absolutely the worst thing that's possibly happened for myself. I'm older now, 56. I turned 56 this year. No jobs out there to get unless you're young and with a degree. So my degree is to go around in circles. So that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, keep turning left. That's what you're good at.
At the time, you're right. It was absolutely beautiful. But boy, after I just don't have too much to look back on. That's why I had that job, and it was just something that was really good. So I feel for a lot of people that lose their jobs after so many years. I can see what they're coming from.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, it's not exactly the best way to start the year, and of course, like you said, with the COVID coming along later on, it's just messed everything else up. Apart from that, not being able to watch any speedway or anything like that. I mean, well, lucky for you guys, you managed to have Paris run by Steve Evans a few meetings recently, one a month, I think it is, or something like that. He's got going on.
It took him a while to get started there, and then finally when it got started, and honestly, I don't see any difference. I mean, I've watched it. I mean, social distancing, I don't see any. So I think the big part is City of Industry is a place that's owned by LA County. So that's something that you can't do. Orange Fairgrounds, Costa Mesa is on the fairgrounds, owned by the state and everything else like that. It's a state fairground. So kind of hard to run stuff when they own it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, speak about industry because I've had a little bit of experience riding there, and you're the referee there near enough every week. Is that sort of something that you sort of like with your riding experience just took on, or is it you a case of get Kelly and just like nominate you for some, just do it once and you stuck with it?
I retired in '97, did a few things, went back up north to work with my father. Things didn't work out. Came back down here with my family, and Charlie Venegas was running the Speedway inside the Orange Show in San Bernardino Orange Show. So that's the car track that's concrete. He was running Speedway in the inside, and he said, "Hey, I want you to referee." It was something that I didn't think about, never thought about it, but he wanted me to do it, and I tried it, and it just seemed that people respected my calls, or just, I really don't know. I mean, it's just racer to race. It's basically racer to racer with us talking, but now I got a little bit of authority over you. So it's kind of arguing with somebody that's already been in the trenches. And being, basically the first national champion to ever become a referee out here in the United States. And over in Europe, I don't know how many champions are referees over there too. So it's a weird feeling.
Well, you're the only one that I know of who's been a national champion and referee anywhere in the world, as far as I'm aware. In the UK, many of the riders who have retired either go into some sort of management or training or coaching type of roles. Not really into referees. There's only been a handful, I think, between sort of like the 80s and the 90s period where the ex-riders for the time, rode in the 70s and then became referees. But yeah, I mean, it's good to see that you're heavily involved still more than anything. I mean, and of course you can pass on any words of wisdom to the up and coming Americans as well. Obviously, you know, if you watch the stuff on YouTube or you watch it live, which is great at industry, it's one of the few tracks that broadcasts live. I mean, I know personally myself, I've watched it and I've loved it. Getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning in the UK and watching it, it's been brilliant. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame that obviously with the COVID situation. But is Kelly hoping to run next year that you know of?
Yeah, I mean, he has plans. They have plans for, if you really want to go into really details, is all the meetings that they have there minus Speedway.
Mm.
There's something going on there almost every single day.
Okay.
Every weekend, there's something going on there. So there's a huge amount of things that are going on there that's not going on. So
Mm.
Speedway was just part of that list. And it's just sad that it did happen because things were going well there. I think the racetrack, I think the riders were, I don't know, for some reason I had to get a camera for close finishes. I mean, you probably have watched them. I mean, it
Yeah.
was the racing just for some reason got so good. We prepared the track a little different. Last few years, I've been working with the track guy to
Yep.
try to get it a little better, to have an outside. And all of a sudden, man, these kids are just going to the wall, and you're like, they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it. And the next thing you know, they're flying by everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some particular races with my friend Brock Nickel. He's done some brilliant races from coming from behind on like Billy J and Max Rummel and all those kind of guys, and it's been brilliant to watch, especially because industry is a very very tight technical track.
Yes.
A lot of it is around the inside line, but then, like you said, you've worked hard to get the outside line working. And I tell you what, the racing, I say, especially I think last year and even the year before, has been something out of I'll quote Kelvin Tatum, out of the top drawer, really.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it has.
yeah, and like you say, there's been some really close calls, especially between like with Billy Gennaro and even when Luke Becker's been back there. You know, it's been good to watch. I mean, it must. As you've seen all these guys come through the juniors and everything, you must be a bit proud to see like, oh, they're on the world stage now, like Brock, and you got Luke on the world stage, trying to get in the Grand Prix and Speedway of Nations.
Yeah, I mean that's the best part about this. You know, junior speedway has gone so much up and down. With myself, I don't know if you know that I'm like almost the first generation of junior speedway.
Yeah,
With
yeah,
with Lance King, Kelly, and Sean Moran,
yeah.
we all rode together, and it kind of fell off a little bit after that.
Mm,
Came back up really big in the Greg Hancock, Josh Larson,
yeah,
Bobby Cody. There's just a list, and that's when that Gumball Rally,
yeah,
the National came over. So it went up again, and then it kind of faded a little bit, but then it just kept going. And then with Billy Hamill coming in with his little academies and stuff, kept the
mm,
150s that weren't around something to start the real young ones out on. So with that going on, I mean, it just kept getting better and better. And when you see Luke riding juniors, you kind of like, oh, he's doing okay.
mm.
Even Billy Gennaro, he was an okay rider. You know, I mean, he was all right. Brock Nickel, he won the national. He was an okay rider, but not spectacular. Spectacular was Ryan Fisher.
Yeah,
Ryan
yeah.
Fisher was spectacular. Didn't do much, but I mean, he was at a stage in Europe. Well, not too much in America, but over in Europe, I mean, he was going pretty good. I think
Mm.
crashing and injuries slowed him down more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, you've recapping with a few of the boys that I used to watch when they first sort of came over, Billy, Greg, and later
Yeah.
on Gennaro and Ryan Fisher. But it's good to see that, you know, it's on its way back up again. I really hope for the Americans that you get a couple more guys come back over to the UK. I'd like to see someone like Max Rummel come back over and give it another go, because I know he tried with Edinburgh, but it didn't really pan out for whatever reason. But no, it's all good. And then obviously going back to your career, which is why we're here to talk about in the first place, is that you're saying, yeah, you came through with the likes of Lance King, Kelly, Shawn, Moran. Would you have come through with Bruce as well at that sort of time then?
No, no, Bruce was a little bit before us. That's when Speedway kind of didn't have bikes. They were just kind of bikes here and there. Then
Hmm.
Sean McConnell had one, but it really wasn't going pretty good with the juniors until Lance King came around.
Okay.
And he's the one that started it. His father had frames and motors, and it just, that was the time. I mean, me and Lance were actually really, really good friends in Northern California, where I started racing
Oh,
at
right. Yeah.
San Jose. We raced inside the half mile track. Not too
Cool.
safe of a track, but it was fun. But we did race Cal Expo and then Auburn and
Okay.
Napa. So Lance and I had really, really good competitions, and that's when his dad came up to Costa Mesa, and we scheduled basically the first junior national.
Well, that's good then. So a bit of US history that you're in the first ever junior national then, really.
Yeah, yeah, and it was at Costa Mesa. I mean, this was at
Oh,
the
that's even
place where,
better.
yeah, and it was at nighttime. It was prime time.
Mm.
It was a big thing for especially us kids, and I'll still never forget about that.
No, was the crowd big for that sort of meeting? I know back in the early, like the late, the 70s and the 80s at Costa Mesa, the crowds, from what I've heard from like Bruce and other interviews, is that the crowds were huge. They loved it.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, the junior one was not the biggest, but I mean, there was people that showed up,
Okay.
a lot of the riders. But once I moved up into the big bikes there, I mean, you're right. I mean, it was one of those things that these kids nowadays will never experience.
Mm.
We've always talked about the tunnel. You
Okay.
don't know about it. Not too many people understand, but we used to go underneath the grandstands onto the track.
Oh, okay.
And it was like a coliseum. I mean, you go through there and you open up, and here's 8,000, 10,000 people that are just scattered around this whole facility. I think at the national 83, I think they had to close the doors.
Oh,
it was
really?
it was
Jeez.
yeah, it was standing room only. I remember the back wall, guys with their elbows on the wall with their beer.
Yeah. As long as you didn't knock them off as you went past, you were fine, sort of
You
thing.
know what it was it, you know what you think about it now, you're like, wow, this was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And it was fun to watch, because the riders, I think about it even today. I mean, the personality that was out there. You had
Mm.
Sean Moran, Kelly, Bruce. Oh no, Bruce was already done, but Segalis. You had the Bass brothers, Alan Christian.
Yeah, correct.
There was so much personality out there. I think that's what made it so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at obviously the YouTube videos we get to watch nowadays of those sort of days in the early 90s when Boogaloo was still riding, yourself was still riding, your sort of generation hadn't really stopped until like until about the mid 90s, really.
Right.
Apart from Boogaloo and Sean McConnell, who don't know when to stop, they're going to keep going, it looks like forever. But no, it is good to hear and good to see, because it's fortunate because we never got to see that sort of thing obviously before YouTube. I know myself, I've got a few programs from the 80s and things like that, of the nationals and the state championships and stuff like that, and look at the names, and even like when you had Sam and Malenko, say Lance King, they were both back in like 85, and of course you just came back from a year in riding in Europe. So
Yes.
a lot of you came back in 85 from what I can read anyway.
Yeah, I think in '85, I don't know if Lance did, but I know Sam did not have a team,
Mm.
and he went back and forth, and he ended up third in the world that year.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he was the first American to ever do what he did without riding in Europe.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, and he's the only one to still do that. Yeah, that's about
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah, unbelievable.
especially and also because the final was at Bradford. It wasn't
Yes.
exactly like it was at a Costa Mesa type of track, sort of thing or anything like that, where he was probably flying back in the States, but come over to Europe and just absolutely blitz it and become third in the world and have a run off with Hans and Eric, really.
Yeah,
You
yeah, and
know.
even that year, 1985. Lucky for me, that was my best year
Mm.
in Speedway. But the competition, I'm with Sam and Lance coming over, and then you always had Bobby. But
Yeah.
it was just something that it helped all of us racers to improve, and I think that happens everywhere around the world when a rider comes in and can elevate your ability to go faster and learn.
Yeah, I mean, also it's like if you race against the best, you're gonna try. Your game is upped, hasn't it? Really, and things like that. But going back a year, go back to '84. You came over to Europe. You signed for Eastbourne. Unfortunately, you didn't do the whole season. For one reason or another, you got dropped, and you went on to ride for Wolverhampton. But start off with Eastbourne. How did that deal come about then in the first place?
It came across with Bobby.
Okay.
He signed with Eastbourne that year. He asked for me to go over there, and we worked some things out. And the main reason I wanted to go in the first place, and I think Bobby knew at the same time too, is I needed to go over there to compete in the under 21.
Yes. Yeah.
That was my main number one reason to go that year. And going over there was a culture shock. I didn't
I can
know.
imagine.
I didn't know anything. I didn't have equipment. I didn't have bikes. I didn't even have friends. You've been in Eastbourne. That's where
Yeah.
I lived. I lived in Eastbourne, and I had no American friends around me. I had no American mechanic. I didn't have anything that said, hey, we need to change this or this or that or this.
Yeah.
I just was thrown in. And even thinking about it now, my first day in Eastbourne, I got there to test ride the track, and it was raining. So
that's a surprise.
yeah, I mean, it was raining. I get on there, and next thing I know, I'm done. They say, okay, here's your keys to your car. I'm like, okay, I think I get on the wrong side of the car.
Yeah.
It was definitely a big culture shock. But my main reason going over there was for the under 21 and all the experience I did at Eastbourne with the tough time I did have there.
Yeah.
I think the scores or the points or whatever you want to say, what showed was bad, but the experience was priceless.
Yeah, and I can imagine, but like you said, you were thrown in the deep end. You're at the other end of the country, because I think, if I remember right from past interviews and podcasts I've listened to, a lot of the Americans were in the Midlands and Suffolk sort of area, because I remember listening to Dan Segala saying that he went from being in Hull down to Ipswich, and it was like being back in the States and things like that. So I can imagine that you felt a bit isolated more than anything down at Eastbourne.
Oh yeah, it was really tough because I would have loved to have some time just to hang out with people that you know. Don't get me wrong, the families that I lived with, the last family I lived with was the Norris family, David Norris.
Right, yeah, cool.
Yeah, his family, and we became really good friends, and we used to ride mini bikes in the backyard. So it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And scoring wasn't that great, but they were bringing in other riders that were a little bit better than me, and that's when I got moved over to Wolverhampton.
Yeah, so that I can imagine that was a bit better for you going to Wolverhampton, more up in the Midlands where some of the other American boys are. But so how long was it between sort of leaving Eastbourne and to going to Wolverhampton? Was it a case of you went straight back into Wolverhampton the following week, or did you have to wait a couple of weeks till you actually made your debut for Wolverhampton?
No, I think once I got traded, I was racing the next week there. I was glad that I still lived in Eastbourne. I didn't move.
Yeah. Okay.
So I stayed there because everything was happening with all my stuff. They just helped me with the situation that I was already in.
Yeah.
So I went up to Wolverhampton, and I think, honestly, if I would have started in Wolverhampton, I think things would have been better because my confidence was up a little bit. Rob Fencing was my teammate my first meet out there. I did a 5-1 with him.
Oh, best start, isn't it? So,
yeah, I mean, you think about it, it was a good start, and I think a lot of the riders helped me there. And like you said, the Midlands were where everybody was, and you could get help and ask questions when you're not racing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, having that off-track sort of camaraderie and things like that, and like you said, bouncing off each other. It's got to do. It had to do your confidence the world of good. And I've got a bit of a stat thing here with an average. I mean, your Eastbourne average after doing 31 meetings was 4.18. And then your Wolverhampton average only after doing 13 meetings was 4.60. So you can see, the difference almost straight away that your average has gone up, not by much, but it's gone up because you've obviously enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing coming off the under 21 World Championship, and then moving. I think not too much longer after that, as that's when I moved over into Wolverhampton, and Wolverhampton was a very tricky track. It still is today. I mean, it's fast, it's tight, and I think the toughest part was just getting the feedback from riders, and I think that's what I got. And if you think about it, if I only had that much time to get to where I was, I think I could have got up close to 6.
Yeah, because it was one of those days you had to be a 6 and above average to stay on the following year or something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Not too many riders that came over. I only person I think that ever did it first year was Mike Faria.
Yeah, but then Mike came over to what, sort of his late 20s or something like that, I think, in the 80s or something like that, wasn't it?
Overseas,
So
yeah, the
yeah,
overseas, yeah, and all that stuff. So he had much more experience than all of us, but it's tough going over their first year and trying to get a 6.
yeah, I can imagine it is, and I mean, unless you're Bruce or Bobby or someone like that, you know, who, you know, you can race and trap and things like that, then you know you were going to get that 6 point average. But so you only had the one season 84 in the British League, which also, like you said, was the European / which is now the World Under 21 final, which is at
Right.
Kings Lynn. So, and you came third in that meeting.
Yeah, and
And
the only reason I got third, if you really want to know, is going to Kings Lynn, not really having the experience, not having the bike, not having a mechanic, pretty much nothing. But Dennis Segalis stepped up,
oh, cool.
and that's when he broke his ankle.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, okay. He came up to me and he goes, "Hey, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a bike and a mechanic." And he gave me, I don't know what number bike. I'm not saying it was 1, 2, 5, 6, 7 or whatever, but he gave me a bike and a mechanic, and I went straight into the under 21 and missed runoff for first by 1 point. So
Yeah.
yeah, just by having that equipment alone proved to me that I could do it.
Yeah, because I think I remember writing Marvin Cox won that meeting on like 12 points or something like that. I think he won it on. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was a really low scoring meeting, and
Yeah, he was 12 and 3, or is it 1, 2? Yeah, 3 of us were on 11.
yeah, because on my notes here I've got it. You had a three-way runoff with Neil Evitts and a Swedish rider as well. So it
Yes.
was yeah. So I mean, it's a tough. That was a tough field because it was all what would you say, like the next 4 or 5 years of top riders who were going to make the world final. And things like that.
Andy Smith was in there too.
Oh yeah, and Andy Smith was there as well. Yeah, so it's crazy to think that those guys.
I think Antonio, the Italia guy, Antonio something, I forget his name, but he's from Italy guy,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I think he became into the world final too. I think. So
Oh
yeah, there was
well,
a
there
few.
you go then. Yeah, there's a few of them then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you managed to beat all of them to get third. So you can't really moan about that one at all, can you? But
Exactly. But that bike, I mean, I'm telling you, man, that bike, not saying it was better than mine or what, but just having that feeling to know that he gave it to me and I knew I had good equipment under. And I don't even know I never rode the bike. Got on it, practiced, and raced.
It might be just the fact because it was Dennis's bike. It might not have been anything special. It might have been just something that Dennis said, "Oh, Steve will be all right on that one," and because it was Dennis Segalis' bike, you thought, "Yeah, that's got it." It's probably a mental thing more than anything.
Oh, so mental. I mean, I owe that whole thing to Dennis. And what's funny is I didn't even know about it. He got third in the under 21 too.
Oh, I didn't realise that either. So
I didn't know that either.
No, because of course before then it was also Ronnie Preston won it. I think 1 year as well.
And
Yeah.
Sean
So.
Moran.
Oh, and Sean Moran. Yes, that's it.
Yes.
Yeah. So so the Americans, even though it was a European final, don't know how that worked, but you guys qualified for it, and you all had some sort of good success in that sort of meeting in those early days of the under-21s.
Yeah, and back then it was you had to pick between the under 21 and the world final. That's
Okay.
why you didn't see a Greg Hancock or Billy Hamill going for the under 21 because they chose the world championship path, and I think worked out pretty good for them.
Yeah, I think I had a bit of success. I don't know. It might have had
Yeah.
a few first places. Because,
Yeah.
because looking at, I've got the list of the years that you ride the nationals, and you didn't ride in '84, and that was one of my questions was why didn't you do it? And no, you just said you had to choose between the under-21s and the senior world championship. So, but obviously, like you said at the start of this, that '84 was the year for you for the under-21 final for yourself. So that's why
Yeah.
you came over to England in the first place. But before we move on from this all stuff in Europe, I've got an Eastbourne program. There you go. It was a fun day. It was a Sunday fun day.
Sunday fun day.
Yeah, when it was like a load of juniors doing stuff and motocross and sidecars and all that sort of thing. And you took part in a couple of races. But one of them, which was quite interesting, was it was event 18 on the day, and it was a unicycle championship race you done with Denzel Kent. So, do you remember anything about that one? Because that could be quite an interesting little story if
I
you got anything
do.
on there.
I do remember now that I did ride a unicycle there with Denzel, and I don't know what happened, but I'm pretty sure I might not have made it around. I'm not sure. I probably would have got too tired to make it around, but it
Well,
was fun.
according to this, Denzel won the race, so I'm assuming that you got too tired and stopped. So,
I probably ran after him to probably throw my unicycle at
well, yeah, probably yes, probably so. But yeah, no, just looking back at that was kind of something I sort of thought I'd bring up in this because to see what you thought about that. But
him.
right, let's switch gears and go on to you riding back home in California. I say you won the nationals twice. In 1988 was the first time you won it, and then you won it in 1996, the year before you retired. So what's your memories of doing any of the national events? I mean, prior to winning, and after winning?
Well, the national was something that was really, really tough because it was at Costa Mesa,
Okay.
at a track that was, it was a very technical track back in the days, a lot different than it is today. I
Oh,
don't
right,
know
okay.
if a lot of people don't know, but they have changed the track.
In what way have they
Uh,
changed the track then from when
it's
you used
actually
to?
it's actually wider now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, 13 feet or something like that. A lot of people don't can see it because it's still small, little teeny track.
Yeah, yeah,
But it was much smaller, much tighter, straightaways, first corners. There's just, I mean, you can see a lot of pictures back in the days of us all going into the first corner together. It was just
yeah,
a very, very different racing, and racing against all the guys, Bass, Christian, Faria, Swartz. It was tough race to win. And my first one, I tell people all the time, I go, that race there, I think I was good and 15 riders were bad.
wow, yeah, okay. Yeah, but it's still it's
Because,
not it's
yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, I won it on 12 points.
yeah,
I clinched the title after 4 rounds.
yeah. So I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's a low scoring meeting. So it's a rarity for anyone to win a meeting on 12 points. But
Yeah, well, and in 4 rounds. I mean, in 4 rounds, and you have the guys with Phil Collins, Sammer Malenko, Bobby Swartz, Alan Christian. And to do that, I just, you have to have a lot of luck. And I
yeah,
think I was really good and lucky, and 15 riders were unlucky and slow and having problems. I mean, it was just one of those races. And I think you got to have a lot of luck to win any championship.
you have, yeah. I mean, everything must have clicked that night for you for one reason or another. You probably
Yeah.
can't pinpoint anything apart from other than the 15 other riders were rubbish.
Yeah,
but, but
exactly.
but I can see it on your wall there. You got your number one plate on the wall from that
Yes.
first year and everything. I mean, that must be a nice pride for yourself to see that most every morning. Wake up and you see that number one. You think, yeah, I managed to do that.
Yeah, and that's that was the dream of a kid starting out young age with Speedway. I started at 9, almost 10 years old, and to do that, not too many people can get to that point. And nowadays, it's a tough crawl to get that plate. And going to those, we got to be on the stage with the national flat tracker, motocross, hill
Okay.
climbers, road racers, and a lot of them. I did know some of them. Freddie
Mm.
Merkel was the world superbike champion in '88, and I got to hang out with him, who I raced flat track with up Northern California.
Nice. So you
Yeah, it was
apart
cool.
from apart from Speedway, you've dabbled in flat track and other bits and pieces, and have you?
Yeah, that's where I started. I started in flat
Oh,
track
I see.
district 36 flat track up in Northern California, and that's when somebody came to my dad and asked, "Hey, that kid looks pretty good. Do you want to try Speedway?" So that's how it started.
And then the rest is history.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much.
yeah. So then, obviously, in that early stage of your career, you won the Northern Californian Championship in '82 and '84. So I can imagine, obviously, that was not too many years after you just first started riding, and if you rode most of the time in Northern California.
Yeah, the day I turned 16, I moved to Southern California
Okay.
to race down here, and because all the good riders were here. This is
Mm.
where it was all about. So going back up north and winning that race, it was one of those things that I kind of like pissed my thumb, and everything was just like, you know what, I can do it. So
Yeah,
going,
yeah,
winning something, and at whatever age you win, and it just gave me more confidence. all around, and especially being young and trying to catch these fast guys. It was tough, very, very tough.
Yeah. So in Northern California at that time, how many sort of tracks were there then at the time then?
I think there was Auburn and Napa going
Okay.
on. Yeah.
All right, so only those two then. Whereas in Southern California, you had about 4 or 5, I'm guessing. So you
Yeah.
rode near enough every night of the week in Southern California.
Yeah. We had Ventura on Tuesday, IMS San Bernardino on Wednesday, Ascot on Thursday, Costa Mesa on Friday, and then Victorville on Saturday. And then in 1985, we had Carlsbad on Sunday.
Oh, nice. So you didn't
Yeah.
really need to ride in Europe then. You were riding enough in California anyway. So that's why.
Oh, shoot. We rode so much. I mean, in 85, Alan Christian and I were going after the points championship.
Okay.
And we were at Auburn on a Saturday because it was a qualifier. And we both looked at each other going, hey, are you going to Carlsbad? No, are you going to Carlsbad? Because we want to win this point championship. And we decided we didn't trust each other. And we drove throughout the whole night, got home, fixed our bikes, went to the races the next day. And we looked at each other and said, man, we should have took the day off.
Yeah. Yeah, one too
We were
many
pretty
meetings,
scared.
yeah.
Oh, it was tough. And I don't even think we had a good night that night. We kind of chuckled at that night and we went on, but it was a really fun week because of the competition. As you
Yeah.
can see, it wasn't just for the national championship. It was even just the points itself, weekly races.
So for the whole season, then you had basically were racing for points then to be a winner over a season. Then is that basically what that was all about then?
Yes, yeah, we had a points championship. You can win the points at each track, but then the final points was at every single track, and we had a points fund that we put into, and we had a big party at the end of the year. And 85, I did win the points, and it's kind of cool to race that many tracks and still come out the top of points, because it was a tough year. I think I don't know if I would have won it or it would have been a little tougher, but Sam, with going back and forth, every time he disappeared, I got to get some more points. So it was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a little lucky.
Yeah, so you were grateful for him riding in Europe and concentrating on the World Championships and all that sort of thing, because whereas you were
That's
cleaning up in California, yeah,
that's
brilliant.
right.
I like
Go
that.
third in the world for Sam. Go for it.
Yeah, but it's #1 for me in California.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
sort of thing.
it was it. That's exactly how it was. But we all raced together. I mean, even at the end of 85, when the championship, state championship was in 85 at IMS, we raced that. The next Sunday was Carlsbad's championship. So,
Okay.
and Sam was at both of those races. So it was a fun, kind of cool 2 nights of hard racing with a guy that, who he is and what he's done.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, I can only imagine that he was on a high for that whole second half of the season there enough in 85. So it made him probably even harder to beat when he came back after the World Championship.
Oh yeah, he was always so tough. From the beginning, he could gate really well, and I think going to Europe helped him out in 84 and 83 or 83, 84 when he went there, and it just kept getting better and better. So every time he came back, he was like the Bobby Swartz of the time.
Yeah.
When he come home, he would go and just smoke us, and it would infuriate myself because I didn't want to get beat by anybody. I think that was the best part for myself, is when a guy came home. That's all I wanted to do was beat him, but
Yeah,
they
'cause
didn't really want to.
Yeah, I can imagine that they were the top boys then, weren't they? You think about it, they had targets on their back from you guys saying, oh, okay, if I can beat this guy this week, then he's not that good, really, that sort of thing. But no, but say you mentioned the California State Championship, you managed to win that 4 times. First time being in 85. Was that at Costa Mesa or was that somewhere else in that championship?
Not the California State Championship. To me, was probably the biggest race I wanted to win first.
Okay.
And the reason why is it was at IMS, and in the 1980s, I won it in 85, and then in 89 or 88, it moved from San Bernardino to Glen Helen. Still in San Bernardino, but it moved tracks. And in 10 years from 80 to 89, not one person doubled up on this state championship.
Oh, right, yeah.
You have Bruce Penhall to Alan Christian, Lance King. You had all these riders, and '89 was the last year to do it. And I think it was myself, um, Bobby Schwartz was in it. I think we were the only ones that could actually double, but we were still racing against Josh Larson, Billy
Yeah.
Hamill, a few other riders. So it was kind of tough. So winning the state and then winning the state again in '89 felt so good because I'm the only one in the '80s that's ever won it twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
on the other hand, I won it again in Auburn.
There
So
you go.
three
Back at home
tracks.
then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
three tracks, 4 championships. Because I won it twice at Glen Helen, and it was kind of fun to win a race that's not always at one track.
Yeah, I can imagine if you think that you can win it at a different track, it makes you feel that much better as a rider because you think, oh, I'm not going to win it just at one place all the time. It's not like I've gone to, let's say, Glen Helen and won there. You say you won there twice, but you've been in between, you've won that in 2 other places. So, makes it twice as sweet then, I can imagine.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's the whole thing. And then back in the days, Costa Mesa was, it was the Augusta of golf. It was a one place. That's where you had to win it one night. Nowadays it's at Auburn, but it's still a series to win the AMA national champion. But the whole thing is that when it's at one track, it only suits that one person. And that's why, like Mike Bass, he won it so many times is because he was just so good at that track, from gating, consistent speed around the track. And I learned a lot by watching him going, you know what, it's not how fast you are, it's how fast you get to the checker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. First across the line, isn't it? So that's what it is. Yeah.
100% of the time, the one that wins the race is the first one to the checker.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what matters at the end of the day. You can be first at the start and still come last, and that sort of thing. But no, it's good to hear. I mean, it's good to see the smile on your face when you talk about all your championships, and especially, I mean, that one in '89. It must be, I say, there's a special one for you. Not just because you won not back to back, but you won it twice, and the only person to do that in the '80s. But beating the likes of the up and coming, like you say, Josh Larson, Billy Hamill. Maybe someone even, did Greg ride in it, or was he over in Europe?
Yeah, he was already in Europe. And what's kind of funny about the '89 state championship is I won it without a mechanic.
Oh, mechanic for yourself.
I did mechanic, change tires. I drew number 4.
Oh yes.
So with number 4, you're in the first race of the night, and then you're in the last race of every round after that. So luckily for me, with no mechanic, I had plenty of time to prep my bike, flip the tires, and do the things I did. And there was a downhill onto the track.
Oh, that's even better then.
I sat there, turned my fuel on, turned the box on, bump started the bike, and went onto the track.
There you go. Who needs a mechanic then?
There's a video. I have a video of it. I just don't know where it's at, but they have interviewed me twice in that race, and they're running to the pits where I'm kneeling down, working on my bike.
Yeah, and here is Steve now. He's busy working on his bike. He's such a professional, that sort of thing. So
I got lucky because, like I said, drawing number 4 with no mechanic gave me plenty of time. I didn't have any time to kind of shake it off and figure it out, and scared if I could get it done. I got really lucky on that one.
And also being drawn in number 4 is the fact that you have a long break between your first and your second ride. So you're not out from you start in heat 1, not out to a heat 8. So that's a perfect gap for yourself and for that sort of meeting.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, perfect. But I mean, just flipping back to when you're in Europe, you got selected for the England USA Test Series. As a reserve, if I remember rightly.
Yes.
I know I've got the video of the Swindon test. I know you were at the reserve for that meeting, and then you were a reserve also at Poole. Did you do any other ones in between?
No, I think Eddie Ingles did one of them, and I think Rob Fency might have done one. We kind of with all the Americans over there at that time, we split them all up.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So basically, they took it, and we were the second reserve. I think the first reserve was Rick Miller.
Ah, yes, yeah.
So Rick Miller at that time was a really good racer. So I think just being there and being around the boys, I mean, you can't beat it. And how good they were back in those years. I mean, it's so crazy to watch how good they were.
I mean, I've got that whole series that was covered on TV over here.
Yeah.
Obviously, they didn't show the last Test series because the Test series was already won by after Ipswich. But but no, from what I've watched, I mean, even when I think it was like Heat 1 of the Ipswich Test, when the guys got pulled back, you could see all the riders getting on like Dan's cigars. Like 3 of them were like wiping him down because he was covered in shale. You know, you're saying, hang on a minute, you know, that's what you want is a team like that around you. You know, 8 boys who were sort of all of a sudden just gelled. I mean, you might be opponents one night against each other at club level, but the next night you're in the same USA team and you're just like a family sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that if you really want to think about it in that way, is how close we were. I think it showed the English boys, the Danish boys would be the next bunch. If you really want to think about how good they became, they kind of gelled together and just started winning everything too after that. And you have to be friends and be as one to win those big championships, team championship, pairs championships. And that's what Denmark did. And I think USA started pretty much to show the way it has to be.
Yeah, but you guys are kind of like that anyway in most sports anyway. In you know, your basketball, your baseball, and all that sort of thing. You know, I mean, it must be drilled into a sort of like a young age, is to sort of like, you know, you are friends away from the competition type of thing.
Yeah, and I think just being an American, I think that's back in the days. I mean, with problems we're having now, I mean, it's just those days we were all American. I mean, that was what we did. We put it on our chests, and I think guys nowadays put the stuff on their chest, but they're from all over the place now. I mean, are they born in America? They're born here. I mean, like Ricky Wells. I mean, he's 2 people. I mean, he could be both, and it's tough for people like that. You know, which one does he pick? Because to me, I feel bad for him because, you know, whatever one he picks, I feel bad for the other country.
Yeah, that's the thing. I remember with Ricky when he first came over to England, because ironically I'm a mechanic from the Brighton Bonanza indoor meeting, I think, when he first came over, and I remember Eastbourne wanted to sign him, but he wanted him on a 3-point average, but he couldn't come in as a USA rider. He had to be coming in as a New Zealand rider. If he came in as a US rider, he was on a 4-point average, and unfortunately that wouldn't fit into the Eastbourne team. So he never became an Eastbourne rider just because he chose to be an American. But
Right.
but since then he's had a lot of really good results, and he's done well in British League and all that sort of thing. So didn't really matter where he went really by the looks of it. But
Yeah, but it sucks for him to have to choose. You know, I mean,
yeah,
I don't think it. I think it kind of sucks that he had to choose either side for that point to help that team out. I think the British League need to realize that kids want to come over and race, and that's the bottom line. They want to race, get them on a team. They all should be. We're all equal. I don't understand anything. When you first start, we're all equal. We all don't know what's going on.
No, especially when you come, like you said, I mean, looking at your past experience with the British League and all that sort of thing, you know, you come in, I'm assuming, on an assessed probably 6-point average, and that's a lot to live up to in the first season, you know, and just things like that. Maybe some people just don't realise the expectation, not necessarily always from the promotion, but maybe on your own shoulders to think, 6-point average, that's what I've got to be if I want to stay in next season, type of thing.
Yeah, and the riders over there are just so much faster in parts of the track where here you are trying to figure out how to start, and they fly by you. You know, you think you got a good start, you beat them, and next thing you know, they're going by you. I mean, the tracks, even back in the days, were so much rougher, wavier, but we were on uprights. It was a different kind of racing. The laydown bikes are totally different. Tracks are different nowadays. So the racing's different. The competition's different nowadays than it was then. But it was tough for me to figure out how to race a track with a wave. Okay. And then my other thought of there is trying to figure out how to race a race with no lights.
Oh, yeah.
I come from Costa Mesa where you can see everything. And then you go to a track, I think it was at Oxford. So it's like a little teeny spotlight, just going straight down like a flashlight. You know, then there's another one down the road a little bit. And I remember racing going, how in the heck am I going to race if I can't see?
Yeah, I can imagine that, yeah.
And that was something that it didn't scare me, but it was very, very difficult to get used to because I didn't, you know, when you're not comfortable, you blame everything. And not knowing where the track is and the dirt's flying at you, you got stuff on your goggles and there's pretty much no lighting on the track, so it's pretty dark out there.
Yeah, and you are literally racing blind,
Yes,
and things like
yes.
that. But also I noted that you rode for USA against the rest of the world select sort of teams in the late 80s, in 86 and 87.
Yes.
One of my notes here is when you rode at Ascot in 86, you managed to have 6 rides and scored 9, paid 11. When the USA won 57-50. So what do you remember of those sort of meetings then? Were they sort of like, again, hard ones like they were in Europe?
The, not to sound too cocky, but I mean, those races, we were just so much better than the Europeans.
Mm.
So we kind of threw points here and there. But it was kind of nice because, like in one race, I had Hans Nielsen.
Okay.
And I got to ride 4 laps behind Hans Nielsen. Did I want to beat him? Not really. I pretty much wanted to follow him for 4 laps and understand his style, his movement of a bike. And it was so bitching to race with guys that you would never race, in a competition, because we were so much better than them at the smaller track.
Yeah.
But just racing with those guys, Phil Collins, that was the beginning of Phil Collins moving to America.
Yeah.
Those 2 races is what got him here. And it was great because we had a good time. I learned a lot. And the boys on both sides, we raced hard, but we tried to make it a good evening of racing too.
More of a show rather than whoever won one sort of thing. So
yeah, because we didn't know what they were going to do. We didn't know if they were going to get on the track and spin out and hit the wall. I mean, they just have never seen a track so small, or get hooked up and trying to figure out the course itself. But racing with those guys was the best part that I had. Like Hans Nielsen's one of them that I do not forget, of getting to watch him for 4 laps and follow him all the way around. It was awesome to do. Awesome.
yeah, so more of a sort of like a learning exercise really than to sort of further yourself more than anything then.
Oh,
But
exactly. You got to learn from that. I mean, you said at the beginning, if you don't have the best people out there, you're never going to get good.
exactly.
Learning from the best is the hardest part, because you're trying to beat the guy, or you're trying to learn from the guy. And I think learning from a guy will beat that guy.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I mean, from my own racing perspective, I know I ride so many times in the juniors, and it's great to ride juniors and win junior races and all that sort of thing. But until you ride against someone who's in the league or whatever, you think, actually, I'm not that good. I need to up my game by this much, sort of thing. Like that's sort of thing I learned from my career. But anyway, going on to 87, the rest of the world came back out again. At Ascot, but this time you rode on 2 tracks at Ascot. You rode on the small track, which was the normal speedway track, and then the big long track. So what's your memories of that meeting then?
We knew that we'd kick our butts on the half mile, so we kind of got a little bit more points spread there. But when we went to the half mile, it was 19-inch wheels and no gearbox.
Oh, okay.
So we were racing a half mile with no gearbox, just kind of slipping the clutch cranking that clutch in a lot, I think. But what was kind of cool is we had 6 riders in the race, and
nice.
It was fun. I mean, it was really fun. They were much faster than us, but we still were competitive.
Do you reckon they put that meeting on just to make the aggregate score a bit closer than really more than anything?
Exactly. But I remember Hans Nielsen wheeling all the way down the back straightaway in one race. So it was cool to watch. It was cool.
Yeah, it sounds like typical Hans, because I've seen the 85 World Team Cup when he was wheeling down the back straight in one race because he was so far in front. But I mean that sort of thing. I mean, it's a shame now that Ascot is no longer here or with us. It's from what I can gather, talking to Doug Nicol. I've spoken to Doug Nicol a few times, and he said he thoroughly enjoyed Ascot, and of course he's still involved with Ascot merchandise and all that sort of thing. What was so special about Ascot then?
It comes back to the environment. I mean, when you went there, it was a show. You had the track was absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was just one of the best tracks possible. You can go there and you can eat food that was not just a hot dog or a hamburger. There was burritos,
nice.
There was baked potatoes. So it was an entertainment going on that racers didn't see.
Yeah.
and we were putting on a show to have fun, and even the TV that you've already got some of the videos from
Yeah.
Ascot
Yeah.
when we are on TV. It was just set up to entertain, and the
Mm.
entertainment there was unstoppable because we had, Bobby Ott.
Oh
They
yeah.
called that's
Showtime. Yeah.
that's where he got his showtime from, and he just went around that track so freaking fast. It was unbelievable. I don't know how he did it, but he was just so fast there. And Phil Collins, he was probably one of the best there too.
Mm. Well, with Bobby Ott, I mean, I've seen pictures, and unfortunately, his career finished before I really remember him riding in the UK. Is that he's hanging off the bike, and and also he was quite a tall person, to be hanging off the bike as much as what he did. I mean, it looked like a taller version of Kelly Moran, really hanging off the bike and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, from the videos that I've seen of Ascot, anyway, it looked like it was a tremendous little track. Almost, I would say, kind of rivaled Costa Mesa a little bit.
Yeah, but it was a little bit more banked. It was a little bit more wider, and all the track from the bottom to the top was the same.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you got pushed out, you just kind of kept it going, and it was always close racing. There was really not too much of a I'm going to pull away from you and leave you.
Yeah.
It was always something going on. You always had to watch your back to make sure Bobby or Mike Free wasn't going to pass you on the outside.
Have eyes in the back of your head every lap, every corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Brilliant.
exactly.
Brilliant. So when you rode at Ascot, did you do like the handicap as well there, and like 8-man races and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's in America. We always did handicap and scratch.
Yeah.
We did our two races of heat and semi of handicap, and then we went into the scratch portion of heat and the semi, and then at the end of the night we rode our main event handicap and then main event scratch until they went to the 8-lap 8-man handicap.
Okay.
Then they switched it. Then it was scratch main event, then the handicap, because none of us can move after the 8 laps.
Yeah, I can imagine, of course, the tight technical tracks of the USA tracks.
Yeah.
Pulling on your arms and every part of your body. These blokes were coming off with gangly arms because they're hurting so much, type of
Oh,
thing.
God.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah.
Tough.
But then the handicap system, I think it should be used in the UK for training, especially the juniors, because then that teaches a rider how to pass and things like that.
Big time. Yeah, I think a lot of people nowadays, these kids and riders, they don't like handicap because they're so afraid of these unclassified riders in front of them.
Mm.
But if you look at what has happened in Speedway, let me slow down a little bit. Handicap teaches you not to just go fast. It teaches you how to go slow, move left, right, forward, back.
Yeah.
And those are the things that you need to learn when you're going fast.
Mm.
And if you look at what has happened in America, Bruce Penhall came from handicap racing.
Yep.
Sam Ermolenko came from handicap racing. Billy Hamill came from handicap racing. Greg Hancock came from handicap racing.
Mm.
Now you don't have any Americans really that have done anything since that gap until, let's just say, Luke Becker now. Because Luke, I think, I'm not going to say Luke's better than Brock or anything else like that, but Luke has done pretty well. He's done some races. So let's put Luke there. Luke is coming from Northern California, where they race handicap every week.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yes. So what that proves to me is handicap not just scares you, you can get hurt and all that, but it teaches you to move the bike where you need to move it, just like Billy Gennaro. I mean, if you ever watch the guy race, handicap, scratch, he's moving the bike all over the place. If he's in last, he's still cutting the course or whatever he's doing. He's making things work, and that comes from handicap racing.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you just hit the nail on the head completely with that. I mean, that's where I think it's lacking in a lot of junior sort of stuff, because, like you say, the guy in front, you're scared of the guy in front. You're watching the guy rather than thinking, where can I pass him? But then that's when priorities come into laying the bike down and things like that. I know from my junior experience on the junior track and doing 500s, my old man drummed it into my head that I had to lay a bike down, and he trained me, and done that. I mean, the amount of times I scuffed my knees, my legs, and all that sort of thing, laying my bike down. And then I've ridden in several meetings where I've managed to lay the bike down just like that. Unfortunately, I think sometimes in the UK, some juniors don't know how to lay a bike down. And I know I'm not the only one who thinks that, because there's riders who I rode with who are now in kind of a management situation, and they say the same thing. So when you're a junior in America, do you get that drummed into your head as well, that sort of thing?
It's hard to teach the kids to lay it down now because of the safety of them getting hurt. I think that's where it stopped, because we used to teach people how to lay the bike down. And I think laying the bike down, you're right, it's probably the number one thing that every rider needs to do. And you've seen it even in the Grand Prix. I've seen the guys laying the bike down. But on the other hand, I've seen these riders in the Grand Prix and over there in Europe, even here a lot too, is these riders, they just bail the bike. And they bail off a bike, and now the bike is going, Mach 100 into a rider or into the wall and hurts the guy. I think if they stayed on the bike, they might have saved not just themselves, but saved the other rider too at the same time, because they just bail off.
Yeah.
What the hell are you bailing off for?
Yeah.
I mean, that fence, and if you think about it, that new air fence that they have, every rider that's got hurt, the bike went in first.
Yeah.
Because then it lifts the air fence and they go underneath it and they hurt themselves, right? So if they would have not been so far behind the bike because they bailed off it, they would have went in it together or around together, and that safety fence would have saved them. And you've watched some of the crashes where the rider goes in with the bike. Yep. They all walk away.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of scary, but look at the results that you're getting out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head again. I mean, the air fences are great. I can't say nothing bad about them. But yeah, it is a case of if you do jump off these things, these are like a missile. They're going straight and all that sort of thing. But no, I mean, obviously, then back in your day, you didn't even have an air fence. You had wooden fences and all that sort of thing. Or at Kings Lynn, where you had a stock car kind of solid fence wall around the outside. So I think you rode in a much more scarier time than Speedway than myself, and the modern day rider type of thing. So
yeah, the wall always wins. The wall always wins.
yes. If it doesn't win on you, it wins in your back pocket when you bend a bike or something like that. So
I've hit a wall before and just completely crushed my pipe, my foot peg, my seat bracket, and I'm like, what the hell? You're walking away with a sore little butt, but their bike is just thrashed.
yeah. I mean, the only thing you can say from it is the engine. The rest of it's gone.
Yes. Oh yeah. But then then you have these air fences. You have the walls that, like at City of Industry, you've raced. They move. So there is safety a little bit better nowadays around everywhere, and I think that's the best part, that riders are lasting a little longer. But I don't think they're going to last as long if they keep getting off the bike and just bailing. I think these riders are good enough, just like Greg has seen the riders. The guy that just won the world final, he lifted out of the corner. Well, he's lifted his foot off the peg. Oh, he didn't lift his, he kind of did. He lifts his foot off just a barely, and just handling the bike itself is what Speedway is all about. Now they're just sitting on them and cranking. I mean, the guy, I can't pronounce his name that well, but the guy that won the world final, I mean, who's a rider that can sit on the back fender, tuck in, and then still go into the next corner and make it?
Yeah, I know.
He goes into the next. I mean, I watched it going, I would have never made the corner. I would have.
No. I think every other rider in the world would have said we weren't going to make that corner. We weren't going to make it. But Bartos, I mean, he's a credible world champion.
Unbelievable.
I mean, to do that sort of thing. And I mean, I listened to another podcast which featured Gary Havelock on it, and of course he used to get down behind the handlebars and all that sort of thing. And people forget that sort of thing. But then Bartos has just started doing it all of a sudden, and now he's like, whoa, everyone, this is a brand new thing. But then if you look back in Speedway, a lot of the guys who didn't do long track or grass track but did Speedway, they got behind the handlebars and the streamlined and all that sort of thing. But no, you're right though. I mean, lifting your foot off the foot peg and things like that, it's one of those things which obviously it's about. The reason we have a foot peg is because it's for balance.
Yeah, I think taking the foot off the foot peg is doing something to the bikes nowadays, because there's so much that these bikes can do now. But I think lifting the foot is one thing, sticking it out is another.
Yeah.
Because you're sticking the bike out or your foot out and then you're leaning. Well, if that bike does anything, guess where it's going? It's going out of the way by itself.
Yeah.
And Greg, you know, he's lifted the bike, the foot up off the peg. A lot of it does for the roost that's coming. Maybe take a little bit of traction. Maybe the bike is dogging a little bit. You know, you're going to get those revs back up.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that the foot coming off is good, but taking it off and sticking it in the air and doing all that stuff, and then all you're going to find out is the crashing that we've seen.
Unless you name Sean McConnell.
I don't think he can ride with a foot peg. He just takes it off.
yeah, he might as well do. You know, from the photos you see all over Facebook, all that sort of thing of Sean. You know, it's yeah,
but he's in last place. But he's in last place too.
You don't see that bit though. That's the thing. You don't see that bit. But no. Anyway, going back to yourself and everything. Yeah. So you had a brilliant career in America. It's a shame that you didn't manage to come back over to Europe in future seasons, really. Was that mainly a personal choice, or was that a case of no offers sort of came on the table and after '84?
I think going to Europe, it just takes a lot of money. I think going back over there would have been nice, but on the other hand, the backing is what you need. You need backing to go over there. I don't care who you are. Riders that go there need help. Between motors, sponsorship, money, I had zero.
Yeah. Okay.
I had nothing. The next year, I had nothing in '85 really, but I could still compete against everybody in the States, and that's the reason I stayed. To race over there again, I would have liked to, but I don't think I was. I mean, I'm too big. Do not have big enough money in my pocket to build the motors back in the days. I mean, still nowadays, I think they're spending thousands of dollars on these motors, I think.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I know Max, I think, has Ashtec as his engine tuner, you know, and he's got one of those newer GMs and that sort of thing, you know. So yeah, I mean, I dread to think what that sort of money is, especially coming from America, going to Poland. You know, the airfare ain't going to be very cheap on that thing, you know.
No, it's not cheap at all. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. You got to have money to compete, and that's going back to 1984. I had money underneath me in my world final, under 21 world final. It did help. So it shows you that you got to have equipment. You got to have a good rider, but you still got to have good equipment. Like Max, Luke, Brock. I mean, Brock's probably got great equipment. He's got very good equipment, and he's a great rider. So I mean, you put two together, what are you going to get? You're getting competition out there that what needs to be done. Luke is on the track. Brock is on the same track. So I think we've got people that are doing that is the right way to do. For myself, I just didn't have the opportunity to go back to Europe with money in my pocket to do it.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, because I'm sure if you went back for a second stint at it, you may have got that 6-1 average, and you may have gone on a bit further on in Europe. You know, not necessarily saying that you would have probably been a world champion or anything like that, but maybe you would have got on to that sort of road, you know, and then coming back to California, you would have probably won more national titles or whatever, you know, from a bit more experience. But
my friends even said the same thing from '84 to '85. The step that I made. So, I mean, even one more step, you're right. I mean, it could have helped me, but I learned so much. I'm a rider that learns. My dad is always, I mean, I struggled in school. So it's the same thing over and over. I repeat myself, even nowadays. I'm a very much of a repeater. And looking just like in '86 and '87, when I raced against the guys that came over, understanding that worked for me. And that's where I think nowadays it's hard, because you gotta learn from these fast guys and then beat them.
Yeah.
And that's 100%. The whole thing. I never thought, I was never afraid of a rider. I thought I could beat everybody. And that's how I race. But how are you going to beat a rider if you've never understood of how they do win? And that's like Mike Freya. To me, he's the best speedway rider that I know of.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why I say that is he can jump on any bike and win. I've seen it done. And he races behind Bobby Schwartz. Bobby would block him, and the guy just is unbelievable. Those two guys, I learned so much from those two that's the reason I became a national and state champion, is because I learned from those two.
of course, I mean, even having that sort of half season with Bobby in Europe again, it's that's invaluable, to yourself, and going further and further and further, But anyway, it's been great talking to you, Steve. I've got a month, which I must wrap this up, because I've got a funny thing. We could talk for ages about everything, about everything in Speedway.
Well, we can have, hey, maybe a part 2 when you want to do it again, okay?
Oh yeah, I'll definitely do a part 2, and then we can talk about anything, put anything on the table type of thing. But honestly,
Well, we got all my refereeing that we can talk smack about too, so we can say who we can pick on and who we can't. So we can have that too.
I'll leave that one down to you, because they've got more chance of killing you than me. But
No problem.
honestly, Steve, thanks very much, mate. I appreciate the time and everything. And I know with the time difference and everything, it's not the greatest, especially me forgetting that the clocks have changed over here. But no, cheers for that, Steve, and everything. And hopefully, let's say part 2 in the future, maybe.
No problem. No problem. We're ready to go.
All right. Cheers, Steve.
Okay, buddy. Thanks.